Welcome to The World Today. I'm Sana Maqbool, and today we'll continue our discussion on the emerging situation in Kashmir. We know that it's almost been a month since the lockdown in Kashmir. On the 5th of August, India revoked Article 370, which led to much restrictions in the area and, of course, a grim situation for a possible potential threat of war or conflict between the two nuclear-armed nations, which is India and Pakistan. So we'll talk more in detail regarding how the situation is now emerging in light with how the international community is beginning to respond to India's violations in the area. We'll take a look at what is going to come out of the discussion of the Parliament in the European Union and their role in this regard. And then we'll also take a look at Prime Minister Imran Khan's reiteration that Pakistan does not want to enter into a military conflict. And along with that, we will also take a look at how India is following a policy which is very close to fascist Hitler's ideology, in which we see that even within India, the Muslims are at threat, which not just Kashmir. So to talk more in detail regarding all these topics, we have been joined by two senior analysts with us in the studios. I'd like to introduce our first analyst, Mr. Rana Javed, who's also DG Pakistan House. Thank you for joining us today, sir. And joining Mr. Rana, we have Mr. Hamid Khan, who's also senior analyst. Thank you for being with us today, sir. Let's begin with Prime Minister Imran Khan's address at the International Sikh Convention yesterday. On the occasion of the 550th celebrations of Baba Guru Nanak, and we know that Prime Minister has time and again reiterated that Pakistan will be working towards protection of minorities, and there's a lot of emphasis regarding that, but we don't see the same from our neighbor, and we see that the situation within India is completely deteriorating, focusing particularly on Kashmir, and the way that India's stance is still on the fact that whatever it is doing is justified in Kashmir. How do you take a look at how this situation will emerge in the next week?
Thank you very much, Sana. I think it's, as you said in your intro, it's a very grim situation. Partially because, of course, that India has taken a unilateral stance and against all international law. And then, most importantly, that the 370, this revoking 370 and 35A basically has created precedent within India that they can also now take action against other states. This is second concern, and this is, of course, because of the mainland India.
Right.
Other communities, other minorities are also really feeling threatened. The third thing I would say that from the Pakistani side, we have at this very sustainable pace under the leadership of the Prime Minister Imran Khan has managed to create a real-time awareness against India's this brutal, as you said, fascist actions in Indian occupied Kashmir. So it is a serious matter in terms of that how world is looking at it now. Of course, the consequence that what they have done to that community, Kashmiris, would emerge once they lift the curfew. We have not seen any signs of it, and that's a problematic and very worrisome development for the European Union and for the US and other international powers, because at least under the watch of the United Nations, if most of the cleansing occurred before, like in Bosnia, Srebrenica, this occurred, and it was really in the end they understood, and in Rwanda it occurred. So it is very important for the international community, especially the United Nations and the major powers, to take action simply on the humanitarian ground. This can be discussed later, that what they should do to penalize India and convince India to reverse that, repealing the 370 of Indian Constitution. So the high time is for us to continue to build our argument in terms of, one, violation of international law, and then humanitarian crisis which they have generated, which can lead to a serious confrontation. Once they will lift the curfew, the situation may get worse, and it is not good for the world peace, because India has not taken the responsibility. Their argument until today is that this is their internal matter, although everyone knows it. For the past 70 years, 71 years, it is on the UN Security Council resolutions. And all those bilateral agreement which India claimed in the past that we want a bilateral, we don't want any mediation, they're also being revoked by this matter. I mean, the sheer action, illegal action, I would say, we call it now, unlawful annexation, because they already annexed it.
Right, absolutely, and we see that India has been standing firm on this stance that it is an internal matter. But we see that now that there is a lot of international pressure on India. How long do you think that India can still call it an internal matter when the human rights violations, especially in the area, keep on increasing? Perhaps we can set aside the issue of resolving the Kashmir issue, but the immediate step needs to be, for now, that the curfew is lifted and the restrictions in Indian-occupied Kashmir are no longer there, which is also one of the conditions that the foreign minister has spoken about before dialogue with India.
Exactly, that's very right you said. The main thing is, like as we have seen, it's in fourth week now, the curfew is, and it's been very much highlighted in media, in international media. Then it has been discussed in the UN Security Council. We have seen it has been taken to the European Parliament this week, and it has been discussed in the Committee of European Parliament. So it's all everywhere. It's a building of pressure, and I think what India is planning to prolong this curfew as much as possible. The reason is they want BJP government, and they want people and to starve there, and kids without medicines there. They want. It looks like he wants to punish the people of Kashmir, which is not right. People of Kashmir are fighting for their right of self-determination. People of Kashmir are fighting for their freedom. If BJP government, or if Modi or RSS ideology is thinking that in this way they will be able to break the movement of Kashmir, I don't think so it's possible. Yes, they are trying to prolong it as much as possible, but either this week or next week or week after, they have to lift the curfew. Then they will see the real aggression, the real reaction from the people of Kashmir, and that will be all over the world. It has to be explained that the people of Kashmir, and they are not gonna accept revocation of 370 or 35.
Right, but so far the external minister has said that the communications blockade in the area is necessary, even if it means inconveniencing the people there.
No, that is an absolutely lie, I would say that. Because it's not like a blockade of communication, it's blockade of food, it's blockade of medicine, it's blockade of any kind of movement there. People cannot even, if there is an old man living in the house, 76 years old, 75-year-old, they cannot even communicate to their kids, either they are in mainland of India or anywhere else. And the same situation, it's not only a blockade of communication, it's blockade of everything. And
right.
Nowadays, the communication has been considered as the fundamental right of every man on this earth. This has been accepted that this is a right of everybody to have a free and all clear access to all the communications, because this is a basic human need now. And
right.
Blockade of this cannot be so longer.
Okay, and we also now see that after a few weeks, we see that this discussion is going to be taken up by the Parliament, the European Parliament. What do you hope will come out of such a debate? Of course, there is one aspect, which is that the international community is taking attention. The discussion itself helps in that regard. But really, if we're looking for something tangible or a real pressure in India to actually end the restrictions there, would you see anything positive coming out of it?
Yeah, I think there would be positive thing, but I don't think that it would be an intense like sanctioning India. It would be censoring India, like informing the European voters in different countries that EU takes very seriously the human rights violation. That's why this normal statement come out are that they have serious concerns and they ask India to lift the curfew. These kind of statements basically is to censor the countries involved in human rights violation. Yes, if there are serious, for example, advocacy coming from France or Germany obviously there will be much more strong statements.
Right.
But as we can see right now, all these countries are considering that India would take wise stance after committing that strategic blunder, that they consider that India would understand the concerns of the world, because almost every world leader has said this, that they're concerned and they want India to release those 9 million hostages, Kashmiri people they have taken hostages. And the other problem which I think which is serious is that India is using rape as an instrument of coercion, through which they are taking young people hostage,
And not just that, a lot of other torture techniques are also being
prisoners, and taking them out of IOK. And also other techniques, of course, they are showing that they are giving them electric shocks and they are beating them with sharp and other objects, and also pellet guns. Of course, we have a lot of people lost their eyesight. Which is really makes people wonder, especially from the military historians, that this was supposed to be a professional army.
Right.
And they have actually lost the right in that way, that if it continues like this, I think there are bigger chances that Pakistan should also pursue, or international, the civil society organizations should pursue and try to lodge cases, and they must lodge cases against the Indian Army for war crimes. Because obviously the reason is that India itself is not at peace with it's not one state, several states. And this is just one which they had a plan for a long time.
Right.
So I think Pakistan, as I said in my earlier statement, that it is important for us to look from all these angles and let the diplomatic response comes as the country's desire. Because if we insist that the statement has to be crafted in this manner or that manner, then we accept it, I think it will take time. So it is good that if United Arab Emirates, other countries, their foreign ministers are coming, if they really are saying concerns and convincing them to lift the curfew, I think this is a start.
Right.
Everything will come later.
Right. Another thing that the external minister spoke about in an interview was the fact that a military conflict between the two is imminent unless global powers intervene. But we see Prime Minister Imran Khan reiterating again and again that Pakistan does not want a military conflict, but if forced to, it is going to respond as well. How do you see the differing statements between the two sides' leadership when we see India talking about a conflict as is something which is inevitable?
Actually, what it is, Indian media, and if you see everywhere, they are creating so much war hysteria, even from at the time of Pulwama issue, at the time in February, and prior to that, and again at this time since 5th of August, right? What it is, India is trying to escalate the situation more and more every day. Pakistan, being a responsible state, being a responsible country, is trying to let the world know that we don't want to start the war, or we are not, because the only reason is we want world to realize that the both neighbor countries are nuclear states. This war can start easily, but nobody knows how would it finish, as
right.
Prime Minister said prior. The thing is, Prime Minister is trying to explain the whole world that there is no question that we will step back from the support of Kashmiris. But yes, we are not the one who wants to start the war unless we've been pushed to it.
But do you think that the international community is taking the threat of a nuclear war seriously when we see statements by even the president of a superpower, the United States, who's made a statement that he's going to mediate and then backtrack from that, saying that it's a bilateral issue?
Actually, what it is, I think all the think tanks in the world, including Pentagon, including in England, in Europe, everywhere, they know the seriousness of the matter very clearly. But obviously, on a diplomatic issues, sometimes it's not been declared so clearly. But when
right.
it comes to the think tanks, they do understand that it is a very sensitive flashpoint, as so many reports in the world in different articles has been clearly said that this is this might be the most dangerous place on this earth at the moment, because if anything happens, it can turn into a nuclear war, it can turn into anything which will affect the whole planet Earth. Secondly, I do understand what President Trump said in the beginning for a mediation, and then when he met in G7 and he said that if they can resolve this bilaterally. But the good thing is, if you think that all Indian media and everywhere, prior to that, they were all saying it's a unilateral matter. Revoking of 370A is only because it's an internal matter
Right.
of Indian constitution. But now at that platform, at that stage, their Prime Minister Modi has accepted that it is a unilateral matter. He has admitted that this matter can be resolved between the Pakistan and India.
Right. Another thing that we see is that while the world community is condemning the atrocities in Kashmir, it is also pressing upon both nations to resolve. And Pakistan has always talked about dialogue being the only solution forward. But this time, what we see different is that Pakistan has put certain preconditions before dialogue, and we see the foreign minister stating that very clearly. How do you see this new stance that Pakistan has taken with regards to the Kashmir issue?
I think it's important diplomatically, but let me add one point to
Right.
what you asked a question about the conflict and confrontation
Sure.
potential. The issue here is that since most of the time India has capitalized on their hybrid warfare, subconventional warfare, launching raw agents, active servicemen like Kulbhushan Yadav and all others in different parts of country, and establishing illegal intelligence network, assassinating different leadership here, and then supporting TTP in Afghanistan. They used this previously. So this model basically was countered by Pakistan, this asymmetric method. So when they failed in this one, then they tried in February, to go behaved in a most, very offensive operations against Pakistan's airspace. We have to understand that they have taken systematic steps to destabilize Pakistan, and they failed it. In this instance, is it their understanding that Pakistan may not cross the threshold, the nuclear threshold, as Pakistani Prime Minister said, that as a responsible state, and of course we believe in dialogue, that's what your question is.
Right.
But still, the issue in the world mostly is that everything will turn up on the table once. If it starts with conflict, it will end up in negotiation. So our stance and initiative that, we have preconditions for that. One condition is, first of all, because since we care about Kashmiri people, for us it's not matter of territorial dispute. It's about the people and the humanitarian issue. So that's why it said that let's lift the curfew first, and then we start CBMs or whatever. And then reverse that, the second step will come, reverse that, the action taken by India unilaterally or internally. So if we look into the expectation that is there a chance, of course, despite our insistence and our caveat, we are saying let's talk still. And the consular access was given for 2 hours to Kulbhushan Yadav, to Indian consular. This shows that we are doing everything best we can diplomatically. But we should be wary about one thing, that India's plans are very hideous and bigger, because they do not accept that Pakistan has played a positive role in Afghanistan, and it's about to almost sign a document in which Pakistan and other Western countries, Norway, Sweden, observers, China, Russia, they played a very big role. So India does not want Pakistan to take credit, A. B, India will continue not to adhere the peace offers, but we should, at the same time, must be ready for any misadventure by India, because this is what they have done in the past. So their pattern of instigating conflict is very obvious, that they have multi-pronged strategy. They first applied,
Right.
They failed. So they may apply a strategy which will push us to war, And I think, as Prime Minister
Do you
said,
think that such a strategy can include a possible repeat of the Pulwama incident?
I think it would be maybe more than that, because
Okay.
the last time they do all these false flag operations, series of false flag operations they have conducted in the Bombay and others. So they will conduct this maybe in IOK, because they can, last time they have used Dalits, soldiers, to have them killed in their own state. This Pulwama was exactly like that, because numerically or otherwise demographically, they will put Sikh, other minorities in front, use them as human shield against their own army. And this is not something which it is right there. If you look at the death toll and the categories of people died in Pulwama, you will find out that most of the people were from scheduled caste.
Right.
And in this case, if they will carry out any misadventure or false flag, they will do it in IOK, and the implication of which they may implicate or may be attacking AJK or some places. And of course, Pakistan is ready. We have seen that the Chief of the Army Staff, General Bajwa, visited and looked at the readiness of soldiers from different corps. And this should be conveyed, whereas Prime Minister has said this. Prime Minister has also very convincingly said that we don't want war, but if one thrusted upon us, imposed, will be retaliated, and this time it will be quite different.
Right, and that's absolutely reasonable.
And because
fair
the
as
internal situation is worsening in India, you must have seen the left, right, left, center, and all these liberal forces are being completely actually muted. They have been like evaporated from the surface of, there's no discourse. The Indian media is the best example. If you watch every day they basically propagate, project BJP, not India. India as a whole has been minused in this process. And that is a problematic for the Western powers, because they were dealing previously with an India which was secular democratic. Now they are dealing India which is fascist, more Nazi style and Mussolini style government, which has no regard for the human rights. And that we must capitalize on.
Right. Talking more about the situation within India as well, we see that not just the policies that are being followed by the Modi government, which adhere to the RSS ideology, are not just impacting people of Kashmir or bilateral relations between India and Pakistan, but also within India itself. We see that such an ideology is rising, and it's bringing a lot of other conflicts to other minorities, not just the Muslims, but particularly Muslims in India, especially the situation such as that in Assam. How do you see the steps that have been now recently taken by the Indian government within India itself to marginalize the Muslim community there?
Yes, actually, if you see, there is no doubt that RSS ideology is based on Hinduism, and they just want to promote, or they just want to
Hindu actually extremist.
Hindu extremist actually, yes. And they just want to have like one nation theory, like old Nazi style, Nazism style, which is not possible now. Secondly, they are trying to wipe out the minorities, whether either it's Christians, either it's Sikhs, or either it's Muslims. And then we see in Assam, they have specially targeted Muslims. They have, they have almost 2 million Muslims of Assam are feared to become stateless, which is United Nations Human Rights Commission President has clearly said that India should not take any step where any citizen of them become stateless, because if they want to, they have categorized the citizenship process, which clearly states very, very difficult criteria for being Muslim.
The NRC scheme, basically.
Yes, which makes Muslims in a different category, which is threaten them to become stateless there. And if we see that, it is against all the human rights, it's against all the international laws, and they are living there for over 50 years. They are living there for a generation, and just because of the religion, you cannot target anybody in this. And when India called themselves as a secular state, and this is what they are doing, as my colleague said, that it has clearly shown the face of Indian government, which is only based on RSS ideology, and it has nothing as what we have seen in previous governments of Congress or other governments, when it was at least so-called secularism was there. Now they are openly taking all the steps against all the minorities, and especially targeting Muslims from Kashmir to Assam to everywhere. I mean, in other states as well, if we see in Madras side or Chennai side, if we see in Kerala, we have
Right.
seen an incident, they arrested
And we
30
see that such
students
policies
there.
are now going to sort of take over all the rest of India as well. So it's a
Yes.
national
All
ideology.
the
And actually,
minorities are feeling very insecure
also
there.
not actually, if you allow me to intervene, it's not only Muslims. I mean, of course, Muslims
Yeah.
are at the
Right.
moment
Even
1.9
Christians and
million.
Sikhs
Yeah.
are
It's the
under
Christians
threat.
actually are being targeted. It's really dangerous in terms of, because they have this generic Ghar Wapsi program, as they say, to convert back all those who were converted hundreds of years ago.
Right.
And they want to convert them as Hindus, so they think this is this. Of course, they are also, what they have done is basically they are creating deception also about Hindu religion. Because if we look into the Hindu religion, overall, it doesn't tell what they are telling. They have started this ideology in 1925. Prior to that, all Hindus, Muslims, Christians were living together. So the integrity of this impartiality of Indianness is gone, and that is what people are more afraid of.
Right.
That this India has become basically under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, basically a dangerous state. I mean, dangerous in terms of that an extremist ruling government has their hands on this nuclear. They have the authority on the nuclear, all their weapons, and this has serious concern. Maybe we are not looking into the mainstream media, but overall internal discussions are exactly the way there should be. That everyone was accusing Pakistan or other countries. Pakistan has demonstrated time and again, but look at India, that the focus India has taken right now of a fascist government with authority to, any time, and their defense minister, he openly said no use, first use, they are not going to abide by maybe. So these intentions basically, whenever they had shown intentions, they had created models on the ground.
Right.
2016, they were saying they have this agenda that they would do this, they did it. Now they are saying that maybe they initiate.
Right,
or-
and like you said, this obviously did not happen overnight. We've seen
No,
it go on
they have systematically, yes,
right.
absolutely.
Since they came into power in 2014, we've seen these policies grow, which makes us see that possibly this can lead to even a more systematic discrimination against a particular religious group. We've seen
And
detention
minorities
camps
overall, yes.
being constructed all over India. When we see such actions taken by India, how far do you think can this be classified as domestic politics or an internal matter of India, when we see that such actions that are being taking place in India now really draw similarities with those of Hitler? So in today's day and age, how can we separate this to be an internal matter and not just take it up internationally?
Yeah. It can't be taken as their internal matter anymore. When it comes to the matter of life of thousands, hundreds of thousands of humans, first of all, right? And when they're trying to build a kind of concentrating camps like at Hitler's time, they built it for them. And at that time, the world have seen how catastrophic that was. Now it's again, at this time, world cannot be silent on these kinds of crimes done by India. They are war crimes. They need to go in criminal courts, International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice, where it must be heard that it's not about a religion. First of all, it's about the human beings. They are trying to cleansing of an entire religion on a certain areas, or they are making them stateless. And if it's going to be accepted in any way, even if the world reacts lately, take more time, then it will encourage India to do more worse steps like that, which is going to be catastrophic for the entire planet. I would say that. And then when it comes to the Muslims, especially, as he said, there's no doubt about that, that the Ghar Wapsi program, they tried to convert the village of complete villages from nearby Delhi and Agra, from trying to force them to convert from Muslim to back to Hinduism. We have seen those examples, and it was very much protested all over India. But at that time, they should have been intervened from the international organizations. But now this is the time when India is going further steps ahead.
Right.
Now this is the time when international organizations should clearly state that this is going against all the laws, this is against the humanitarian laws, this is against the international laws, and it can create a big crisis for the Muslims there, for the minorities there, and I would say that even Indian public should understand that, as it's not about all the 100% of the public is with BJP or with Modi. The internal organization, internal humanitarian organization, NGOs, they should come forward and they should speak about it. I would say this should be the message from our side, from everywhere, that the people who are making sense, who are talking sense in India, they need to come forward now, because we have seen only one side in all over the media. Indian media is so biased. They only spokespersons for the ruling party,
right.
and they don't. If anybody conflicts with them, if anybody have a differences with opinion, they just shut their mics.
Right, they
I mean,
are
we have
under a
seen
real
that.
threat, of
I
course.
just,
also.
just wanted to add on this one. You said internal
Yeah.
matter, actually. If we look at because we started with this Nazi ideology, very similar to the RSS's. We must notice that Hitler was also killing only German Jews, so he was not going abroad to kill them. So he started with that one, and the global response came pretty late.
Yeah.
Millions of Jews were gassed and killed. So that is the point exactly, that this diplomatic, which Pakistan is trying through diplomacy, awareness, everyday communication to people, creating awareness within the Pakistani communities, Pakistani people, and also creating awareness if we can communicate, which is very difficult now, a complete blackout in IUK, that Pakistani people, Pakistan's everyone stands by Kashmiris. But of course, those who have the power must understand that historically, whatever happened, they know the consequences. The Holocaust, absolutely today, after such an effort, has become even, if you do not accept it or if you criticize it, you get prison, you get a jail sentence. So we must, that's why this angle is much more important at the moment. And the momentum has built, I would say, automatically. Because still the world concerns not with only the, I would say, the nuclear war, this is number one, but also the people of Kashmir. We have seen, Bernie Sanders, the former presidential candidate, Democrats, he spoke on that, extraordinary statements he made.
Absolutely.
And there are so many people which we do not know really in the West, which are coming out protesting. So these are the good signs for humanity and the crisis which Kashmiris are facing. We must continue to push it forward, and this should be also added by the political opposition in Pakistan. I think it would be fair to say that they should also come forward, despite of their difficulties and their political different ideology. Doesn't matter. They should come and join the government forces and continue and carry on this fight against India and its brutality in IUK. I think this is a parallel approach which will be intensified before the 27th September, when the Prime Minister will be speaking in the General Assembly in the United
Right. Of course,
States.
we see that Pakistan has always, time and again, taken much effort to create awareness and to highlight these issues at different fora. And we know that a good achievement was that the UN Security Council session was held. And now another one that we see is that it will be taken up in the UN General Assembly. But another thing that you mentioned, Mr. Hamid, previously was the fact that even public opinion within India is of great importance. We see that a few elements are speaking up against the Modi government. But do you think that they're enough in terms of is the vast majority of India still being appeased by these policies, or is there an actual threat to Modi's popularity within India?
To be honest, at the moment, I would say it's not enough what voices are coming against this. They are not enough. There are few, we can count on even fingertips. It should be, I expected more intellectuals to come forward, and I expect more think tanks to come forward with the clear stance on against this humanitarian and against these actions which has been taken in Indian occupied Kashmir, which has been taken in Assam, which has been taken everywhere. But as you said, yes, it will, at the moment, because media is playing a big role there, and media is not, is not projecting the other side of the point of view. And the second thing is, yes, it will eventually affect Modi's population. I believe that. It will, we have seen Russia become in parts, right? We can see if India continues like this, we can see that there will be many countries or states within India asking for independence more strongly and more precisely, because it will insecure even all other states within that. It's not only the constitutional crisis, it's the humanitarian crisis there. If they will say that they can do this to the poor Kashmiris, they can do tomorrow to they can repeat the history of Darbar Sahib, what they did in 1984 in Punjab, in Amritsar. So we need to project that thing, that India is going or following the pattern which is becoming or giving in danger of all other minorities, and it can be very, very dangerous for the coming days. And yes, Sikhs are watching it, and other minorities are watching it. We have seen a large number of protests in England, especially in London, in Europe, where Sikhs are participating along with Kashmiris. They are marching with the flags of Khalistan there. They are marching with the flag of Kashmir on the one road. Just last week we have seen that a large number of gathering, they went to the Commonwealth House in London and they took off the Indian flag from there and they put the Kashmiri and Khalistan flag there to show the protest and solidarity with Kashmiris. So this is going to be eventually, it is going to, if India continues with it any longer, the world will see that it will have many states within India.
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Rana, you mentioned the UN General Assembly session in which this issue will be raised again. Do you think that's going to create a good ripple in terms of pressure for India? We know that a lot of international community members, and you mentioned influential leaders like Bernie Sanders as well, coming forward and speaking up against it. Do you think this is another push in terms of actually making India revoke the status that it took, and also end the human rights violations, and especially the curfew restrictions there?
I think I would not go that far that India would suddenly reverse its decision. In my personal opinion, it will be a complementing effort what's happening in the Congress, the awareness, the House Foreign Relations Committee, Arms Committee. Their heads, they have addressed the issue very seriously and discussed it. The important thing for the Prime Minister would be, and the delegation Prime Minister, to meet the world leaders and brief them exactly the ground situation and demand a fact-finding mission. Consists of neutral people sent by the UN, this Human Rights Commission in Geneva. That fact-finding mission, along with doctors, psychologists, and all those experts in anthropology, they should go and look at what kind of violations are committed, and then the psychological impact of it, and what are the designs, future design, because the future design appears to be at the moment is that under the disguise of this curfew, they are sending RSS, militants, and then they are also taking people from the retired military personnel and others and populating them right there in the Muslim majority areas, because the Muslims are in their homes. They're being confined, the shops are being closed for so long. So I think it is important that the Pakistan should demand a fact-finding mission and continue there with the world leaders and trying to ensure that how much international press or interviews we get. Secondly, which is I think important, let those people speak for Kashmiris. Let Kashmiris speak for them, the diaspora living there. Let's change the faces. Let's bring fresh faces and let them debate it.
Right. Okay, last question, Mr. Hamid. What role do you think the OIC can play in this regard? We know that it has condemned Indian actions there, but we see that Prime Minister has again asked both the United States and the OIC to actually stand up against the human rights violations in Kashmir and give a more firm stance on the issue. What more do you think can be done by the OIC?
Oh, there is a lot more needs to be done. I would say that although our Foreign Office is working very hard in collaboration with other embassies all over in Muslim countries. And I would say that as Prime Minister has been talking to His Highness King Prince Salman bin Abdulaziz 3 times within the last 2 weeks. So our efforts are there to convince OIC to strongly condemn and strongly take some kind of action or some kind of line of action against India, where they can explain that this crisis, if it gets worse, it is going to be condemned, and not only condemned, rather the Muslim countries should send a message together that there will be a big question mark for India to answer, that this cannot be continued like that. And one more thing I want to add, that at this time, it's a question mark on the credibility of Indian justice system as well. I would say that there is a petition in Indian Supreme Court. We would see what they do that, because it, as whole of the world knows, that it's an illegal action. It's by revoking 370A. So all the eyes again on the decision of the Supreme Court, Indian Supreme Court, what they decide about it. It should not be decision like they did it in past, which shows that they were under the influence, while it was the decision of Samjhota Express, while it was the decision of Babri Masjid. They all went against Muslims. But this decision is very clearly, it was a very clear illegal steps taken by the government, and it should have been scrapped by the Supreme Court. I would say that it is a big question mark on the credibility of Indian Supreme Court at the moment.
Right. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen, and being with us for today's discussion. That's all we have time for. Well, you heard the conversation. We're, of course, going to see how the situation in Kashmir emerges. Pakistan is on the right track on highlighting this issue in the international community, and we hope that a real response is seen from India as well towards actually resolving this issue and moving towards dialogue. Thank you for watching. This is Maqbool signing out.